Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Mayor,
Good morning.
and Mr. Lee and Chair Mendelson. Thank you for being here today. This year marked the 40th anniversary of sister city relations between Washington, D.C. and Beijing. And I'm very concerned about this relationship because, as you know, the Chinese Communist Party has become increasingly more aggressive at home and abroad. In Washington, D.C., people can openly petition their government, voice their opinion, and exercise their other rights under the First Amendment. Beijing embodies the opposite of these values, with no free expression and punishments for those who speak out. Just most recent example would be to see what's happening in Hong Kong with all the political prisoners there. Additionally, the Chinese Communist Party's United Front uses engagement, including sister city programs, to exert influence over foreign governments, officials, and businesses. Given the nefarious nature behind the sister city program, as well as the horrific human rights abuses perpetrated by the CCP, how do you justify continuing this relationship with Beijing?
Well, thank you for that question. And we have been active participants in the Sister City program with other capital cities around the world. I don't know how long this arrangement is with China, but it's probably a couple of decades old. And we're happy to review all of our relationships, but we do take a lot of signal from the United States Department of State. And that's a conversation that we'd be happy to have with them. We were pleased that Secretary Blinken created a division in the State Department that works with mayors and at our level. And I will tell you that a lot of our relationships related to Sister City are not high-level diplomacy. They're people-to-people strategies. So what can we learn from a Chinese school in Beijing? And some of our sister city relationships focus on healthcare. Others focus on cultural exchange. And we are proud to represent American values in all of those relationships. So the basis for all of our sister city agreements is how we can share the best of America and take from those relationships what help us on either cultural exchange or how we do business.
Okay, so you take, from what I can tell, you take a lot of direction from the Department of State. Is that what I'm hearing?
We certainly consult, and so if there
Let me just,
yeah, sure.
So the Biden administration, as well as the Trump administration, both have declared a genocide being perpetrated by the Chinese Communist Party. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with us cutting off all diplomatic relations with
No,
China.
I didn't say that, but they've declared that there is a genocide occurring in China, specifically with respect to the Uyghur Muslim population. Both the Biden administration as well as the Trump administration have declared that.
As I said, I will be happy to review that in the context of what the basis of our relationship is.
Okay, I appreciate that because it gets even more complicated because throughout Washington, D.C., the propaganda arm of the Chinese Communist Party is distributing their China daily newspaper, and they have it in boxes all across the city. Are there regulations that determine what can be placed in different places around Washington, D.C.?
I think all of the newspaper boxes there used to be many more newspaper boxes, and
Yeah,
we
it's
don't
declining, I reckon.
Yes.
But I guess the question is, I'm wondering how much does the Chinese Communist Party pay for that communication?
None. No, nothing.
Who pays for the boxes throughout the?
You're bringing up something that I actually looked at a few years ago because we don't regulate, and it's very difficult for us to regulate because of First Amendment issues. So those boxes are placed without the district getting paid for them.
So they Okay,
But
so.
I haven't seen any of those boxes.
Well, I guess my question is, if it's an arm of the Chinese Communist Party, and they can put them anywhere in Washington DC, does that concern you?
It concerns me, and if nothing else, I think that there's what do I want to say, a visual neatness issue. I know you're getting at content. Content is very difficult for us to be able to regulate.
But I guess, and Mr. Chairman, if I might have a minute more to explore some of these. All right, thank you. So do you believe that the Chinese Communist Party has First Amendment rights here in Washington DC, similar to what other?
Well, I hate the way you phrase it, but I think the simple answer is that we as a government cannot discriminate based on content, whoever is saying whatever they're saying.
Okay, all right. Just one last question. In Michigan, my home state, we had a Chinese national, because we had same-day voter registration there. We had a Chinese national vote in the election illegally, and the ballot was never able to be retrieved, and so you had an illegal vote cast by someone of a foreign government representation. And Washington, D.C. offers same-day voting. You're also allowing people only to demonstrate that they're residents rather than citizens to vote. How would you protect federal elections? Because we contribute $500,000 towards federal, election grants for D.C. How would you prevent a Chinese national from voting in a federal election here in Washington, D.C.?
Well, Congressman, we have a board of elections that operates independently. I appoint the commissioners to that board. I'm very proud of the way that they administer elections, and we've had a lot of reforms to the process that have opened up the franchise of voting, which we think is helpful to how we produce local policy and run our government. So the Board of Elections, they have really taken on the challenge of administering our elections in a fair, impartial way, and a transparent way.
Is it fair,
and
though, to
counting
have
votes.
Is it fair to have a Chinese national voting in an American federal election here in Washington, D.C.?
Only if a person qualifies can they vote.
Well, as you phrased it, I would say no. A Chinese national, then they would not be a
A
truly...
DC resident.
But how would you prevent that? If it's only proof of residency and a Chinese national is a resident here in Washington, D.C.?
I don't want to speak for the Board of Elections, who has the responsibility for administering them, the rules. And they know the eligibility requirements for any voter. And I have to tell you, we don't get complaints about how our elections are administered. People can vote from home. They can go to their local voting centers. They can vote on paper. They can vote electronically at the vote centers. And what we're very proud of is at the end of the night, we know who won. And so I think DC residents feel very confident about how they vote in the district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've been very generous with your time. Thank you.